Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Reese's Peace of Mind. I'm your host, Reese, of course, where we discuss the audacity and the cringiness of these fucking books. I hope you guys are ready to get started because I know I am. We about to get into it. We about to get into some stuff, some talking, some cringe, and I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about it. So, we have a new book today. I have a treat that's not actually a treat because this shit is bad. This shit is, whew. I didn't think that there was a book that I would be able to read after the last book we read last episode. You know, where the whole ass teacher wrote a whole story about how he was fucking his student. Yeah, that. But I felt like we should stay on the same tracks of like cringe. One for you guys today. Have you guys heard of the book Credence? If you have, well, that's what we have. That's what we have for today. If you haven't, well, buckle up, bitches, because we are about to get into it. I got my notes ready. I'm ready to get into it. Penelope, welcome to the show. Welcome to Reese's Peace of Mind, girl, because we about to get into your book. We about to talk about you. So, what is Credence? All right. So, I'm reading this book because I had somebody tell me about it, and they were like, oh, if you're cringing at that, then you need to read this. It's fiction, but it's just as bad. And I'm like, well, then let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's read it. So I get to read in this book. Well, it's about a 17-year-old girl. Her name's Tiernan. Tiernan's parents both died via self, if you get what I mean, because they just could not live without each other. They loved each other more than they loved their own child. So that's to say Tiernan got some fucking trauma, y'all. Tiernan been going through it. So both her parents are dead now, and she gets word that she's gonna have to live with her uncle because, or her quote unquote step uncle, because that's who her parents left to take care of her in their will. So she goes to the mountain to live with her uncle, Jake, and his two sons, Noah and Caleb. And let me just say, any story that happens in the woods, any story that's happening in a secluded, needs to know what happens area, I know it's about to be fucking crazy. I know that shit's about to be insane. And what kind of cringy story would it be if she didn't fuck all three of them? Yes, you heard me. It's a whole family affair, bitch. They passing this girl around like a baton at a track meet. She goes there, she starts messing around with all three of them, and I love how the book, before like any of them started messing around, put extra emphasis on step. They said like step uncle, step cousins like multiple times. Like that was the worst part of the book. Like that's what made the book as bad as it is. And for y'all listening right now and thinking to yourself, how is the fact that they're not related the worst part of the book? Well, bitch, let me tell you, it gets bad. Like these characters, these men, throw them in the fucking trash. You know I love to say throw them away. Throw them in the fucking trash. They are not shit. They're not good people. They're not good characters. And I'm going to get into why I don't feel like they're good characters. So let's start with Uncle Jake. Little Jake. And he's super forceful, kind of like has like a little bit, in my eyes, a stuck up attitude. Like he's this gruff, I hate the world, I went through so much kind of guy. And I'm personally not a fan of men like that, but he's like, I didn't read a specific age, but they did say like in his late 40s, but he acts like a fucking child to me. Like he's 40 years old, but he acts like teenager. Like he always has this woe is me, I hate the world attitude. I live in the mountains, so to get away from all the bullshit. Yeah, that's Jake. And my biggest problem with him is that he takes in this 17-year-old girl, and his stepbrother that he knew he hates him, like they have a bad past together, And I feel at times he takes a lot of that out on Tiernan, even though your brother's dead, his wife's dead, she's 17. Like, she doesn't know how to process her emotions, which is shown throughout the book. And I just feel like the way that he treats her lacks a lot of sympathy, it lacks a lot of empathy, and it kind of just turns me away and turns me off from reading the book, like from like the get-go, from the moment she met him at this airport. He lacked any traits that I would be like, wow, this is a caring man, he cares for her. He never really showed, outside of sexual tension, that he really cared for this girl. So I really, off meeting him, was not a big fan. He did not have any redeeming qualities for me. Examples of this would be, she fixed the fridge because she sees that it's like freezing stuff and it's not working. So she looks it up on YouTube how to fix it. And instead of this man being like, oh, thank you, I appreciate it, he gets a whole attitude with her, basically being like, don't touch our shit. And I'm like, damn, like, you got beef with her daddy, not her. Why are you treating this girl like that? And another example of it is like, so she hasn't eaten since she's gotten there, and he had like told her she needs to cook breakfast and shit like that, but she hadn't eaten and it was time to eat dinner. She's still, in my brain at this time, in the way that it's written, she's still trying to process like all these things happening at once, moving to a new place that's completely different from where she's from, losing her parents, being around people that she doesn't know who are now like her quote unquote family. And instead of like asking her to eat in like a proper way, of just like trying to talk to her like a normal human being. So let me read what was written in the book. After he's like, this girl hasn't eaten all day and he's noticed, this is how he treats her. He heads to the fridge, this is Jake, and pulls out a pitcher of juice and places it in the center of the table, pouring himself a cup of coffee before he sits. I'm not hungry, I tell him, moving to the sink. I rinse off the knife and spatula Noah just finished with. You didn't have dinner, Jake points out. Sit. I'm not hungry. And before he says anything else, I stroll out of the kitchen and up the stairs. I feel his eyes on my back, and the farther I go away from them, the more I brace myself for a confrontation. But he doesn't chase after me. He lets me go in the moment. In my room, closing the door behind me, the truth is I'm starving. So essentially, instead of just like talking to this girl, and I know this doesn't seem like a lot, but did she eat? No. Did he help her with anything emotionally? No. So now she's sitting here. She still hasn't eaten, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, so what did this fix? How did this help? And instead of him changing his attitude later on by learning her personality, he kind of just does this like whole toughen up act, and I hate that shit. And then, like, in the same moments, like, not even a couple of chapters later, he takes that time to start talking shit about her dad. Now, guys, he knows nothing about this girl. He doesn't know that, like, she did not have a good relationship with her parents. But maybe y'all may think, maybe I'm fucking tripping. But I don't think that you talking shit about her dead dad is, one, gonna fix anything, and two, gonna make her feel better. Like, he's like, oh, your hands are soft just like your dad's, like, you don't do any work. That's his like personality. I'm like, boy, fuck you. Like, you are a piece of shit. And then, like, while not ever treating her, he never treats her better. He never like changes his personality and warms up to this girl. It just immediately turns into sexual tension. I quote here, his eyes drop to my mouth and I stop breathing. Everything gets warm. A trickle of sweat glides down his neck. The hair on my arms stand up and aware of his naked chest. We're too close. Like, she's still 17. And like the author, Penelope, is writing this in here like I should be like, wow, like I love this for her. Like, she's starting to feel this attraction to this man who treats her like shit because he looks good, even though he's like twice her fucking age. No, I'm reading this like, what the fuck happened? Like, where is this attraction coming from? He doesn't even treat you right. At this point, she has like a splinter in her hand or some shit like that, and he's trying to get it out. And then the way that it's written is like he's trying to suck the wood from my palm. As my mouth falls open a little as his teeth gnaw and tease a splinter. My skin is sucked and tickled. My fingertips graze the scruff of his cheek. Girl, you are a child. And the author is a grown ass woman. Why are you writing this shit in here? And then afterwards, he tells her, stay away from the local guys. Like, who are you? This man is so fucking controlling. And then, like, to balance out the quote unquote controllingness, the author makes it to where there's like a sexual tension between the two. But she never builds this man, Jake, up to be like a good person to her that would make sense for this girl to start liking. And then, like, when even in Jake's inner monologue, when he's talking about her, he'll say things like, the kid has problems. Of course, that makes her no different than my other kids. But Haynes, that's her dad, and Amelia, that's her mom, fucked her up. She's different than I thought she'd be. Quiet, rigid, afraid. I have no idea how to handle her. I'm not smart enough for this. People like her who don't show emotion are finding other ways to release it. So what is it with her? Drugs, alcohol, cutting, sex? I stop an image of Tiernan in the back seat of my car, sweat on her face, her hair sticking to her cheek. Eyes closed, breathing hard, pops into my head. I thought that you were stopping the image. And why is this your immediate reaction to this 17-year-old girl who you're literally just talking about obviously has trauma? Fucking weird. And then there's that time that he like walked into her room randomly when she wasn't there, and I think he was like looking for her or some shit like that. And this is how the author like describes his interaction walking into the room. Her smell hits me and I pause. It smells like skin, wet from the rain. Deja vu suddenly washes over me. I inhale deeper. Skin with the faintest hint of fragrance, like that soft hidden place behind a woman's ear that smells like her, but also a little bit of her perfume and shampoo and sweat. Am I the only person finding it weird that like he's already having these sexual fantasies and sexual feelings toward this 17-year-old girl who's been through a very traumatic situation? I'm just sitting here in my head like, am I bugging? Is it just me? And then there's also when he describes her and he says she wets her pink lips and my breath catches for a moment. If I were a worse man, setting down my mug, I head to the closet and pull on my Rockies cap off the coat rack, fitting it on my head. I need to get out of here. Like, I wanted to bring that to y'all's attention because I just want to show you how he's like, if I were a worse man. But later on, not even like a whole chapter later, the scene happens, and I don't know if I was supposed to be like eating this shit up or what, but she couldn't sleep. She was struggling with like, nightmares because bitch got trauma. Like, she's 17, she lost both her parents. Her parents treated her like shit when she was alive. So she got a lot of shit she got to work through, which is why I don't necessarily blame this girl for her actions of sleeping with her family members. And I think that the responsible adult in the situation, aka Jake, should have been the one that should have been taking care of her and not allowing these things to happen. But I digress. So she goes downstairs because she's just had this nightmare. She couldn't sleep. And guess who's down there? If you guess Jake, you're right. Yup, Uncle Jake was down there. He's in the kitchen. He starts questioning her, like, why are you up? Shit like that. And bitch starts cooking eggs because it's like, I guess, I don't know, she was hungry because she didn't eat dinner that night or something like that. And as she's like finishing cooking the eggs, he comes up behind her to like get a plate or some shit like that. He didn't have to come up behind her to do that shit. And then the rest of this scene happens. So his hot breath filters through the strands of my hair to the back of my neck, and the flesh of my skin pebbles as his hands tease me so painfully gently. all winter. She's talking about the fact that they're going to be locked into this cabin all winter because it snows so bad there they can't leave the cabin. And then Jake goes, I think you should leave, Tiernan. I narrow my eyes and turn my head over, craving his touch on the palms now. It feels so good. My eyelids flutter. Leave the peak, I ask? Or does he mean leave the kitchen? He doesn't answer. My stomach sinks a little, finally realizing what he's telling me. Needles prick the back of my throat. You said I was home. I catch his hand mid-caress and thread our fingers and curl mine to hold his light tightly. You said I was yours. This is no place for you. He did say he was hers. Like, mind you, by the way, all this still happening. She's still 17. So Jake goes, this is no place for you. Tears well again, but I push them away. He talked me out of leaving yesterday morning and now he wants me to go. He wants me to be all alone. I'm always alone. And so now she goes into like this deep, everybody hates me, I'm all alone, nobody loves me, because that's how her parents treated her. And then she asked Jake, why did my father give me to you? They knew what they were going to do. They could have waited a few weeks until I was 18. She's talking about them off in themselves. They could have waited a few weeks until I was 18. They could have given me to their assistant. I lean back into him more, savoring his warmth and his eyes on my body. And then Jake goes, maybe they didn't think about it, I murmur. Or maybe they knew it was the only good thing they could do for me. At least I was mentioned in the will. I wouldn't be surprised if I weren't. So, they're like leaning on this counter, still having this quote unquote moment. He then, after she says that, like pushes her against the counter and like pushes his groin against her ass and shit like that. He bends this girl over the counter and then starts like dry humping her. So they're like humping, and apparently they're having like this moment of like peak sexual tension. He says to this girl after doing all that, and that's another problem I have, because I feel like this man will do something sexual and then afterwards he will excuse his behavior and be like his way of excusing his behavior and hurting her is to push at her traumas. So after he dry humps this child on the sink or counter or whatever, he goes, you're a lonely and emotionally stunted child. You're the first woman I've been around long enough to get connected to in the past 20 years. He stands straight, running his hands through his hair. And you're just a neglected orphan desperate for attention. That's all this is. And I'm supposed to like this man? I'm supposed to be like, oh my gosh, like, he's just lashing, you know? You're a grown-ass man. Learn how to fucking control your emotions. 1, that's hurtful. That's rude. 2, what the fuck possessed you to say that shit? I heard that shit and I was like, wow. Are you building these characters for me to like them or for me to hate them? Because I hate them. I'm not a fan. So after this man is literally fiending on her, she decides, okay, enough attention from Uncle Jake. I'ma turn my sights to Noah. And we'll talk more about Noah later. I'm not gonna get into him now because I'm still on Jake's ass. So she turns her sights on Noah. They start fucking around on the couch, going crazy, and then Jake catches them like in the act of like messing around on the couch, and his response is, "What the fuck are you doing?" Noah lifts up and I can see the strain and struggle on his face before his gaze levels and he gives a tight smirk. He stands up and turns towards his father, nothing she doesn't want. I sit up, Caleb rising to his feet behind me. Oh, I forgot to mention in this scene, while she's messing around with Noah, Caleb is just sitting in there watching the whole time. And you know, I'm not against any like watchy play, like ain't no kink shaming here. I'm just saying, 1, they're brothers. 2, I got beef with Caleb for another reason. So that shit was an L to me. Anyways, back to the scene. Jake goes, go to bed. Noah hesitates, but then he clicks the TV off, grabs his shirt, and heads up the stairs to bed. Caleb following. Then Jake grabs Tiernan and he goes, not you. I turned my head away, feeling his blaze onto me. What would have happened if I hadn't come down? I don't know. I don't know why I'm embarrassed. Normally, yes, I would be, given our familial ties. This is wrong. I can see how people would see it as wrong. Everybody would see it as wrong. But it's not like he wasn't all over me a few weeks ago. What would have happened? And then Tiernan goes, I don't know. And he was like, what did you want to happen? And she's like, I don't know, and starts crying. So then after that, Jake repeats, like, what did you want to happen? Because this man getting heated. He getting rowdy with the shits. So she calls him out on, like, the kind of, like, the sexual things they've been doing. Because he's trying to make it seem like it's wrong for her to be messing around with, like, people in the house. And so she goes to her old possessive uncle. You get hard, you feel it. I reminded him of the night in our kitchen. I'm not supposed to feel it too? And then he yells, you're 17. So he knows. So he knows. Okay. 18, I growl back. I could have screwed anybody by now. My parents never cared, but I did. No one ever felt right before. He squeezes my arms. His fist clench, his fingers dig into my skin, and I whimper. It hurts. He drops me and twists me around, bending me over one arm. I barely have time to suck in a breath before his hand lands hard on my ass. A slap pierces the air. I gasp, squeezing my eyes shut in shock. Yep. He fucking spanks her ass. And doesn't correct her on the fact that she's like 18. No, you're 17, bitch. You're not fucking 18. You're not 18. And so instead of like, because he just got mad at her for like messing around with one of his sons while the other one was watching, instead of him like, cutting all sexual shit out the house, then, I'm waiting for this man to, I don't know, get a fucking grip. He starts spanking her, and then afterwards he says, don't make me do this again. It hurts us both. Whose dad are you? Excuse me? Sir, I need you to get a fucking grip. Be so fucking for real. At that scene, I wasn't mad. She goes upstairs crying about the fact that her uncle just spanked her for smashing her cousin on the couch. And then, another thing that I hated that he did, since I'm on the I hate Jake route, like, Tiernan has been very big on, like, she knows how to shoot a gun and shit like that, but she doesn't want to shoot animals. Like, she doesn't want to take any lives, which is completely understandable. And if you even add in the fact that both of her parents, like, off themselves, it's completely understandable why she wouldn't want to do something like that. And I personally believe that trying to force her to do something like that isn't right. But does Jake care? No. He wants to watch her kill this animal, and he likes that shit. Not just likes that shit as in he's getting happy for her. He likes that shit as in it's turning them on. And I have a quote from the book that proves this shit. He's like, I watch her, not the buck, and I'm mesmerized. So innocent and pure. Untouched, just coming alive for the first time. Something so big is just contained under her surface. I want to feel it all come apart in my arms. Tiernan is a pulse in the house. So this is how he's describing her, like pointing this gun at this animal that he's forcing her to kill. He knows like she's like more innocent and pure, and it starts getting off on that fact. Forces her to kill this deer. She kills the deer, and then she starts crying because it was a lot for her, like mentally and emotionally. So she starts breaking down, and she starts screaming at him, hitting him with her fist. She's pissed, and as she starts hitting him with her fist, his little monologue to this was, "You little bitch." And then she says, "My parents sent me to you because they hated me." She pushes me off her. "They wanted me to suffer, and you were the worst they could do to me." Maybe, this is what he said back, maybe they felt bad about what they took from me, so they gave me you. And what he's saying this because they ruined his relationship with one of his ex-partners, and she was like the girl that got away from him. He loved her and shit like that. And he's basically saying like her parents gave her as their payment for taking away his first love. And then after that he says, a payment he said, I gripped her by her scalp and pull her up to my mouth. A payment on their debt. That's what you are, Tiernan. A fucking payment. And then after that, what does he do? He fucks her. You guessed it. Hey, I'll tell you what, it didn't take much of that, man. And that was literally like the day or the day after her 18th birthday. So yeah, immediately he goes into, okay, well, it's time to fuck her. Starts fucking her. Now they start messing around. They start their relationship. And throughout this like weird ass relationship, and it's not necessarily weird. Well, it is weird because he's her step uncle, but that's not like the weirdest part. The weirdest part is like there's no healthy part of this relationship that was kind of built. It was just fucked up all the way around. And it's like you can't even fuck with it. Like there's nothing about it that's kind of redeeming because he's not nice. She's going through so much trauma. There's no like development character wise for you to like it. And like things like she acts like his ex in the bedroom, and then after they built like this whole connection and she's like, I love Jake, like I'm gonna be here for him forever. Literally not even 5 seconds later, she starts messing around with Noah. So that brings Noah in. So Noah is like the playful, I ride motorcycles and dirt bike racing and shit like that. That's Noah. Like, he's like the more written as like your more free spirited character. And I would say, arguably, out of the three of the main males in this story, he's arguably the best when it comes to like the way he treats her. But the standards were low. The standards were very low because the other two weren't shit already. So him being a little less shit is what's made him like kind of like not the worst. He's the lesser of the three evils. My thoughts on Noah are just like, at first I didn't have any problem with him, but some of the things that he said just like I disliked him too. There was like he would be playful 1 second, but like if anything happened with Tiernan, with her uncle or Caleb that was inappropriate or rude or like wrong towards her, he always defended them. And not just him, they always defended each other. Like any of their bad actions that happened, they would be like, oh, you know, like that's just them. You kind of just have to go with the punches type of thing. And I'm like, fuck no, that shit's not okay. Say something about that shit. So, as I was saying, Noah is probably arguably like the best of the three. But I want to go into some of the things he's said and done so that you guys can understand why I say all three of them still ain't shit. Exhibit A, he heard her and his dad fucking, and his response to it was, I heard you last night, he says in almost a whisper. Heard me. His tight lips person, he tightens the bolt. He's working on a motorcycle. And he tells her, Daddy didn't love you, so you let mine fuck you as he will. And then she like, they have like a glare off. And then he goes on to say, maybe you've done without it for so long, you're confused that sex means love. Maybe you'll do anything to make sure he never forgets you exist, even if it means spreading your pretty little legs. I was like, damn, Noah, rude ass. Was that supposed to get me to like him, Penelope? Because it didn't. And then next, he's been drinking. He's drunk, and he grabs the main character, Tiernan, and she's like, stop, Noah, you're drunk. And there's 4 empty beer bottles on the table clank as I struggle kicking the leg of the table. And then he goes, no, you're bored. I want to make love to you, Tiernan. I want to fuck you, my father's pretty little whore. I rear my hand back and slap him as hard as I can across his cheek. His face whips to the side and he sucks in a breath, but he laughs, almost moaning in pleasure. After I read that, I said, hey, I'm gonna keep it a stat with you. Like, this family got some fucking problems they need to work through. And then there's the other part where when she first met Caleb, and I think this scene, because the other two weren't as bad, but he constantly referred to her as like his dad's whore and shit like that, and a slut and stuff. And I'm just not a fan of the terminology. Not a fan unless it's being used in the bedroom, which it wasn't. Like, they would be talking to my girl, and that's how they would be talking about her. The part that like solidified my hate is actually when Caleb came into the picture, because man been playing wildebeest off into the woods this whole story so far. So Caleb comes in and he basically assaults them, not even basically, he assaults the main character. He's come back in from the woods, he sees her, and I guess he assumes she's there to fuck him, even though she said multiple times, she's like, no, no, don't touch me, shit like that. And I'll get more into that scene later, but I want to talk about how Noah reacted in that scene. So when he saw that, he said, after that, he pulls his brother off and he's like, oh no, that's dad's brother's daughter, like you can't do that to her. And this man's already ripped off Tiernan's clothes and shit like that. And his response to that is to start laughing. And then he goes, just cut him some slack. He's always starving when he comes back from being in the woods this long. And I really didn't like the way that he kind of just brushed that off as just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, he just wanted to fuck you. Like, you'll be fine. Immediately after that, I was like, okay, I don't like you because it's your brother who did it. I'm supposed to be just okay with it and brush it off like you did or like Tiernan did. And then afterwards, he continues to like ogle at her, half on, half off clothes because his brother almost assaulted her, and then goes back inside laughing when she's somewhat not amused. And then like to me when I saw that, I was just like, is this really how I'm supposed to be like feeling towards these characters? Am I supposed to like them? I'm supposed to be a fan of this? It just was like a major turnoff for me. Like that's something that I don't play around with, and I didn't think that that was cute at all. And I'm hashtag not a fan of people, authors who romanticize assault. Like there are ways that in the bedroom that you can get, spicy a little bit, a little extra. Like everybody has their kinks. Everybody has those things that they do, but I feel like that wasn't it. That was just like plain as assault. After that, Caleb's bought into the picture, and I'm like, oh Lord, like I'm 2 for 2 now. I'm kind of over the men in this book at this point. But I didn't think it could get much worse than that. But when they introduced Caleb, I was like, wow, this has to be the most toxic man I've ever seen in my entire years of fucking reading. This man is a grade A piece of shit. He's overly aggressive, very childish, very emotional. I'm, like I said, hashtag not a fucking fan of him. So, like I said, his first time meeting Tiernan, he tries to assault her. She's like yelling at this man, no, no, I don't want to do this. And he's like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to take what I want. If his brother had not come into the room and stopped him, then he would have kept going. And they kind of try to push this off as he doesn't speak, he doesn't talk because he's gone through this traumatic experience with his mom and he doesn't know how to speak with women. And I'm sitting in here like, okay, that doesn't give you the fucking excuse to sexually assault women that you meet. And it's like, oh, but none of the other girls in town see as an assault, so you shouldn't. But I do, because that's what it is. And like I said, I'm not a fan of authors who sexualize and romanticize assault and make it like this cute little thing. Just because somebody has traumatic experiences and PTSD and things they need to work through doesn't give them the right to put their hands on somebody. And Caleb's behavior was constantly excused throughout this book because of his quote unquote trauma. And I was like, that's bullshit. I got examples. Let me show you. He finds out she's been messing with her uncle, and I guess he is now somehow enamored with our main character, Tiernan. And he finds out that she's been messing with her uncle, and he comes into her room, or she finds him in their room, something like that. And he bends down and he picks up her underwear, and he's like rubbing it in between her fingers. And at that moment, she says, like, she kind of feels sort of guilty, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, girl, like, you already fucking his father. Like, what do you have to hide? Man been in the woods the whole time. What the hell are you feeling guilty about? Peep this. This is after he's like picked up her underwear and all that shit. And then she goes, I grab for the underwear, but he yanks them away, and my stomach hardens like a wall of bricks. I slap him. He jerks a little but doesn't falter. I grab for the panties again, but the fabric tears and he pulls his arm away. He balls my underwear into his hands, his eyes angry and on fire as he slams his fist into the wall by my head. I suck in a breath, cowering on reflex. Everything I felt a moment ago with Jake is gone. I straighten, ready to shove his son off me, but before I have a chance, Caleb grabs me. Taking me by the arms, he backs me up into my room and pushes me down on the bed, pinning me there. Get off, I growl, fighting his arms, but he's quick to keep his hold. He rears up a little, and I barely have a moment of realization to dawn before I turn away, squeeze my eyes shut, and his spit lands in my hair. Tears immediately spring to my eyes, and my chest swells with a cry. He grabs something off my nightstand, then drags it across my forehead. I realize it's my marker. He quickly climbs off me, tosses the Sharpie, and I lie there too stunned to move for a moment. I don't have to look in the mirror to know what he wrote. He leaves the room, his foot falls heavy on the stairs to the attic, and when I hear his door slam shut, I finally sit up. Tears hang in my eyes, but I'm not crying anymore. I stare off angry, feeling dirty all of a sudden, but after a moment the shame turns into rage. He's pissed. I'm almost amused. He had at least 3 women in his room, and I've been here not counting Cece in the barn that day. But I'm the slut who gets to spat on? Would I have been one if I had let him or Noah share me in bed last week? His fucking spit weighs in my hair, and it's all I feel. The anger building in my lungs with every breath is almost enough to drown out the ache. Y'all heard it right here. That man grabs her, pins her to the bed, and spits on her. Grab the marker, and if you're wondering what he said on her forehead, he wrote slut on her forehead. He's actually the main male lead. He's supposed to be the man that we fall for the most because he has the most trauma that he had to work through that he never did. I'm supposed to fucking like this man? Do I look like I'm sipping on dumb bitch juice? No, I don't like this man. Fuck him. If you didn't think that was bad enough, if you didn't think him assaulting her, getting violent with her, punching the wall behind her, spitting on her, writing slut on her forehead there's also this scene where it goes, Caleb shoves his bowl, hitting the pot in the middle of the table. It slams into my cup of milk, making my drink topple over and hit the table and spill across the top. I can't make it out of the way before it spills over the side and right into my lap. I shove my chair back, my bare thighs and sleep shorts already soaked as I dart my eyes to Caleb. He stares at me across the table, the kitchen now silent. If there was any doubt about whether or not this was deliberate, there isn't now. The cold milk streams down my thighs and drips to the floor. Jake stares at him, breathing hard. I sit there, showing him that he won't make me run and hide anymore. And when he relaxes back into the chair, I watch as he slides his spoon into his bowl of oatmeal, lifts it up, facing me instead of putting it into his mouth. Caleb, no, Jake moves for him. But he flings the tip of the utensil and the glob of oatmeal on the end, launching across the table. I jerk my face to the side, squeezing my eyes shut just in time for it to land on my jaw, the warm glue splattering across my face. This man is a fucking child. I don't care if he has trauma to work through. If he's going to act like a child, then I'm going to treat him like a child. I have zero remorse for this man. Zero sympathy. He's very violent. He's very mean. He's very forceful. If you think for a second that that's the worst he did, it's not. There's this final scene that I'm going to talk about with Caleb because there's more he does. There's 2 more scenes that I want to talk about. 1, he slaps her across the face. He, and I quote, stands up before I know and can tell what's happening. His hand whips across my face and my neck twists so hard a tendon nearly snaps. What the fuck? And then there's this scene where they're having sex and not in a sexual way. She starts begging this man to stop. And she says, tears hang on the corner of my eyes. And for a moment, all I can do is hang on as he pumps harder and faster. It's too deep, though. It hurts. He's taking me and fucking me like I'm nothing. Caleb, stop. He doesn't hear me, though. His hand landing on my ass with a loud whack. I suck in a cry and the belt digging into my skin. Stop, I scream. I work the belt wider, slipping my wrists out, and when I rope around hitting him, I don't know how many times. I burst into tears, seeing the rage on his face as I scramble off the bed. Naked, I run from the room. He catches me and yanks me back to him, but I slap him with everything I have and bolt into Noah's room, locking the door. There's zero reason in the world for me to like this man. And truly and wholeheartedly, he can go to hell. So, I don't know what Penelope was trying to create with, like, this character, but I think there are limits to shit. And I think that you writing a book for, like, even 18-year-old girls to read and showing them, like, that this behavior is okay by romanticizing it, it doesn't sit right with me. It's not fucking cute. And I want every fucking woman, young woman, grown-ass woman to know that anybody who treats you like that, that's abuse, that's assault, and you damn sure shouldn't fucking stay with them. I don't care what they went through. I don't care about any trauma. You shouldn't be staying with them. That's shit for them to work out on their fucking own. And I know that this is fictional, but I'm going to make it very clear that there are a lot of people who stay in relationships like this with people because they feel like, no, like, this, they love me, this is right, they're just going through things. It's not your job to fix anybody. So just keep that in mind. Don't read shit like this thinking that it's the norm and that it's okay, because it's not. He also tries to, like, get her pregnant by forcefully throwing her birth control away. Like I said, he hit her, and it's all excused by his trauma. So I'm like, fuck him and fuck that. Low-key, I was on my fuck Penelope shit, but, like, every author has their own shit that they want to write. I'm not a fan. Caleb can go to hell, for all I care. At the end of this, you know, like, she's going through all through these men, like I said, like a baton at a track meet. She goes through all of this, and I'm sitting here, like, thinking about, like, the book as a whole, and I'm like, there was no relationships that were healthily built up. And nobody actually throughout the fucking book took the time to work on their own personal fucking problems. Everything was excused by a time skip or, like, trauma. And we're just supposed to be these all-forgiving people. In my personal opinion, because this episode is about my opinion, I feel like it was poorly written, development-wise, character-wise, and there are ways to write taboo stories that, like, people will like and listen to. This is not the way to do it. Because I feel like if you're going to write something as taboo as that, you have to have a point where you have some sort of redemption afterwards. And there wasn't any. So I think that's why this book, like, pissed me off the most. Like, the characters weren't good people. Tiernan never, like, actually got through her trauma, and just kind of was used as a sex toy to make the trauma go away. And even at the end, she ends up getting with Caleb. She ends up dating that man. They get back together, and his quote-unquote redemption, because she leaves the house and goes back home, his quote-unquote redemption and him talking again was him going to the mountains, which he's been to throughout the entire fucking book, and, like, working through shit himself. That's not how shit works. That's not how people get help. Obviously, he hasn't been able to work through it before, and just because somebody leaves you doesn't mean that your trauma is going to magically go away. Not a fan of that. Like I said, I felt like it was very like lazy writing, and I get that it's an erotica. I get that. Like I read them all the time. I've read plenty. Spicy is my favorite content. Okay, cringy and spicy. That's all I know. But there's a way to do things, and that could have been written so much better than it was. There's a lot more things that I could talk about when it comes to this book, but I feel like I've been talking forever. And if you've read this book, tell me if you saw it differently. If there are things that you felt like, or if there are things that you felt like that I missed or didn't talk about. But for the most part, I feel like me showing you these characters, the characters were really the only thing about the book that mattered because this shit was in one setting, basically this house the entire time. But like I said, I'm not a fan of it. I wasn't impressed by not only the writing, that I felt like there were some mistakes throughout the book. Setting wise, like she wrote dogs in the book, but the dogs didn't even have names and they barely existed throughout the book. Like I said, I just felt like a lot of this was very lazy. But let me know how y'all feel about this shit. Maybe I'm over exaggerating. I saw this book about this girl fucking coronavirus, so I'll probably end up talking about that in the next episode. Let me know how y'all are feeling. I love y'all. I can't wait to talk about the next book with y'all. And I'ma head out and say Credence is a big L and a no for me. I'll talk to y'all later. Love y'all. Peace.